Hello, I'm Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity and creator of Modern Health Myths. And today we're going to talk about a way to have less fat. That certainly sounds like an exciting proposition, and generally it requires time and effort and dietary changes and exercise and avoiding environmental chemicals and all that fun stuff. But the choices we make can actually help our body decide whether it wants more or less fat cells. That's pretty exciting and pretty simple, but it really means that our diet has a huge control over what we're going to look like in the next day, week, or even decades later. So it boils down to something called stem cells, which most of you have heard about. And we have different types of stem cells. We have the embryonic stem cells that uh, basically start, they can become anything. So that these basic stem cells can become things like brain or heart or lungs or bone. But later on, these cells become what's called multipotent. They can only become a certain amount of things. And these stem cells that come from adipose tissue, that come from fat, can become more fat. They can become cartilage. They can become bone. There's a lot of good things that can come. There's also some bad things that can come out of it, like more fat. And I remember reviewing a study quite a few years ago looking at whole body vibration, which is we've had a whole body vibration unit in our office for probably a decade, and so this one caught my eye, and they found that when the stem cell was vibrated, it actually turned into the stem cell turned into bone instead of fat, which is fantastic. And that may be the signal that causes that, or vibration may be the signal that causes that stem cell to become bone. So if you're sitting on the couch doing nothing, you're going to have more fat, less bone, which is not a good thing. As opposed to moving around, you're going to have more bone, less fat. Well, it turns out that there's a sugar in a lot of different foods, but commonly in cranberries. It's a sugar called D-mannose, and this is a sugar that we don't use very well, so we absorb it, and it shows up in the urine, and that's most of you, if you've heard of D-mannose, its impact on urinary tract infections. And certainly patients who have used this in my office have done really well with D-mannose with almost no downside to it whatsoever. But it turns out that while D-mannose is well accepted for urinary tract infections, it also may have another benefit, and that is prompting these fat stem cells to become not fat. So becoming bone or a cartilage or muscle or tissues that we want instead of tissues that we don't. D-mannose is also present in other foods, blueberries, apples, oranges, green beans, broccoli, which broccoli has pretty much everything in it. It's like a gigantic nutritional time warp or time dimensional warp where you can, everything known to man that's good at it is like in there. So by having cranberries, and again, we're not talking about crap cranberry cocktail, we're talking about real cranberries or real cranberry juice, may actually lead to your body to having less fat cells. That's fantastic information and not something that is unusual or difficult to achieve. And it may be that D-mannose may slowly make its way up into those compounds that has some really substantial benefits on human health, but that remains to be seen. As always, I'll post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.